Hi everyone. Aside from those who claim the so-called dominant bebop scale is the only true example, there are a number of different scales which share this label. Probably the three most common bebop scales are the so-called major, minor and dominant bebop scales. However, these scales, and especially the minor forms, can have their variants. I'll discuss, for example, several different scales defined as minor bebop scales. Their labels, however, and sometimes even their content are not necessarily consistent. Despite their differences, all bebop scales contain three key features. They are all 8-note scales. Structurally, their content typically alternates between notes outlining an extended tonic chord, either a 6th or 7th, and typically the notes of one of the diminished 7th chord types. And they are all based on standard major and minor scales with added chromaticism. It is this connection with standard scales which can be useful for introducing beginners to jazz to certain concepts such as soloing over changes. The major bebop scale consists of the notes of a standard major scale with an added note between its 5th and 6th degrees. To highlight its role as the 7th degree of the scale's structural diminished 7th chord, typically the added note is written as a flattened form of the 6th degree. This, however, is not universal. The structural extended tonic chord is a major 6th chord. There are several minor bebop scales. The so-called natural minor bebop scale, also known as the altered bebop minor scale if the 6th degree is written as a sharpened 5th, consists of the natural minor scale with an added note between the 7th and 1st degrees. In other words, the natural minor bebop scale and its relative major bebop scale share the same notes and chromaticism. In the natural minor bebop scale, however, the chromatic note is typically written as a sharpened 7th degree to highlight its role as the root note of the structural diminished 7th chord, while its extended structural tonic chord is a minor 7th chord. The so-called melodic minor or sharp 7 minor bebop scale consists of the ascending melodic minor scale with an added note between its 5th and raised 6th degrees. This chromatic note may be written either as a raised 5th or the lowered 6th degree, which highlights its role as the 7th degree of the structural diminished 7th chord. The extended structural tonic chord is a minor 6th chord. The so-called flat 7 minor bebop scale consists of the notes of the natural minor scale with an added note between the lowered 6th and 7th degrees. The structural tonic chord of this scale is a minor 6th chord, while the lowered 6th degree is the 7th degree of a structural dominant 7th chord. So-called Dorian bebop scales consist of the notes of the Dorian mode with an added note between the mode's 4th and 5th degrees, or between its 7th and 1st. The latter scale's structural tonic chord is a minor 7th chord, while the 6th degree is the 7th of a structural half-diminished 7th chord. The other Dorian bebop scale unusually doesn't contain the typical chord types formed by alternate notes of the scale, but instead contains a diminished 7th chord on the sharpened 4th degree and a minor 7th chord on its 5th degree. The dominant bebop scale consists of the notes of a standard major scale with an added note between its 7th and 1st degrees. This added note is the root note of a half-diminished 7th chord, while the structural tonic chord is a dominant 7th chord. I hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. See you next time.